Good morning. Hi, guys. I know I usually do good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. How's everyone doing today? Um, Thanks for hopefully joining me here. I'm going to wait. Hopefully, people will come on. Sorry to be running so late on this, but today's been interesting. This whole week has been interesting. I want to start with something that I'm really asking for prayer on, and also asking for your help. Pardon me. Um, Not sure if many of you know, but my mom, please don't mind me. My mom is in hospice care right now. She has advanced Parkinson's. And I'm reaching out to everybody who's going to see this, who's watching this. I'm inviting everybody, please, to listen to this, to get on Facebook right now. Um, I just want to start this before I get into chapter one here of this Proverbs 31 study on She is Faithful. Guys, I really need your help. I need your help. I need your prayers. Um, this is what's going on here, okay? Please don't mind any background noise. But my mom, her name's Patricia. My mom is in hospice care right now. She has advanced Parkinson's. And I found out from my sister that she's going downhill fast and they're giving her about a week. I want to go up and see her, but we're having money issues. If anybody could help us with money for a hotel room, as well as gas and food, you know, we'd really appreciate it. If we could just get enough for 1 to 2 nights in a hotel and gas and etc., it would really help us out. I don't want to have any kind of a fancy hotel. There's one there that's under $100 a night. And if you guys could help us with money toward that, it would really be great. I have on here my Cash App, my PayPal, and my Venmo on here. And if you want to send it to me via Zelle, you could message me privately. I will give you my phone number. This isn't some kind of begging things, guys. Okay? This is my mom, and I really could use your help. I'm even posting a link here too while I am at it. My family needs help with the cost for the final expenses. It's they're trying to raise 6,000 here. The final expenses are crazy. My sister couldn't afford uh, any kind of life insurance. Forget it. It's way too overwhelming, guys. Just way too overwhelming. So I'm pleading, guys. I'm going to post the link here after I'm done with this, and I'm asking, please help. Please, guys, we really need the help right now. I want to share some things that God showed me out of what I learned with this first thing on she is faithful. And I really pray that, what I share with you encourages you. I want to let's go into Proverbs 31, okay? I thought it's interesting, but it was interesting with the whole thing of she is faithful, what that meant. I thought that was really interesting about that, about being faithful. And I love how Darlene uses the example of Ruth here. I want to start off with 1 Corinthians 4, verse 2 here. She asks, Darlene asks, well, why does faithfulness matter? And she says, because when we're faithful where God has placed us within his will and his word, we bring glory to him. And I very much agree with that. I very much agree with that. Talks about being godliness in motion, steady and strong, and I love the whole story of Ruth. I really do. I love the whole story of Ruth. That there's something beautiful there, where she says to Naomi, "Don't tell me to go away from you. Where you go, I'm going to go. Where you stay, I stay. Where your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. If anything parts us but death, it's a powerful statement." And faithfulness isn't about how we feel, it's about who we trust. It's choosing to stay the course even when the outcome isn't clear, as Darlene says. And I agree. And I was checking out 1 Corinthians 4, verse 2. I have to share something here, because faithfulness isn't just a good habit. Being godly in motion. A woman who is faithful, she breathes life into the everyday. I thought that was really interesting. But I wanted to with 1 Corinthians 4, verse 2, it tells here that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful, right? Okay, and I want to ask this question, guys. What are some things that you've been entrusted with? What are some things that you've been entrusted with? I think for me, let's start right off the bat, my little brother Seth. I honestly was not anticipating or expecting this responsibility, nor was I asking for it. But God placed it in my lap, and I'm glad he did. I believe that he's entrusted me with Seth because Seth needs somebody that will fight for him, look after him, and make sure that he's not left twisting in the wind. And for those that don't know, I am the oldest of five. There's me, my brother Daniel, my brother Seth, and Micah, and then my little sister Ivory. Daniel and Seth are what is known as intellectually challenged. Daniel is kind of mild, moderate. Seth is moderate. And Seth has a lot of other medical issues. Seth has a lot of interesting medical issues. These issues came about at a combination of at birth and through let's just say, went through certain really awful things. He's on medication. He's on antidepressant medication. And I think he's on some other medications. Anti-anxiety, antidepressant. I don't want to see him twisting in the wind. And something out of Colossians 3:23 and 24, and I want to read that verse with you guys. Let's turn there. Colossians 3:23 and 24. Because there's something precious in this. It says, and whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. Okay, let's think about that. Whatever you do, do it. And whatever you do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. Think about that for a moment. Bottom line, we have a responsibility. We need to give our all, and we need to give it all for God. Whatever you do, this morning I was reading something interesting out of Zechariah uh, about despising the day of small things. The people of Israel were going through some opposition, and they gave in to the opposition. And 20 years went by before the temple was completed. And they finally start getting back to work with it. They're seeing people are comparing the temple that were around during Solomon's temple. They're comparing this new temple, and you know, it's a mixed bag. Some are living in the past, some are looking forward to the future, and it's just overpowering in both ways. But there's something interesting here that Zechariah, God through Zechariah shares here. We don't despise the small things. God is in the small things. And when we serve in the little things, when we are faithful and we're serving Him faithfully, even in the little things, God rewards. And yes, this question is, who are we serving when we are faithful, and where does our reward come from? We're serving God. We're serving God, and our reward comes from the Lord Jesus Christ, bottom line. And Proverbs 3, verses 3 and 4 talk about something interesting here when it comes to this. Let's turn there. Proverbs 3, verses 3 and 4. It says here, let not mercy and truth forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. And so find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man. And find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man. Now, with this, what happens when we love? What happens when love and faithfulness guide the way we live? We find favor with God and man. Think about that. When we're serving faithfully, even in the little things, and we let love and faithfulness guide the way we live, we find favor with God and man. Our reward comes to us from Jesus Christ. We find favor with God and man in more ways than we could ever imagine. And we all know Lamentations 3:22 and 23. It says, his compassions fail not. It's because of the Lord's mercies we're not consumed. His compassions fail not. His mercies are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I want to ask this. When you read Lamentations 3:22 and 23, what do these verses reveal about God's faithfulness? And why can we depend on Him? They reveal His love and His mercy are not only new every morning, that His love never fails, but that His faithfulness is great. That God's love, compassion, mercy, and faithfulness don't give up or run out on us. That they're overflowing. Even in the midst of whatever we experience, God never forgets us. Talk about that. That's the ultimate in faithful, don't you think? And the Proverbs 31 woman doesn't follow the crowd. She's trustworthy, steady, and grounded in truth. Her life reflects a deep devotion to God and a quiet resolve to follow His lead, even when the road feels uncertain. In other words, she's an orange amongst a bunch of apples. Okay? She's the one, pardon me, going straight this way, and everybody else is going this way. She's a person that says, I'm going to stand up for what's right. I'm going to be faithful and loyal to God. I'm going to live a life of righteousness, holiness, honor, and integrity. And you see one of the clearest examples of that through the story of Ruth. I encourage you to read the book of Ruth. It's amazing. Here Naomi is setting out for Bethlehem. She's broken. She's lost her husband and her sons. She's got nothing left to offer Orpha and Ruth. They start the journey with her. They're both resolved to go, but when she urges them to go back home, here's where the road of faithfulness, you see who's going to be faithful and who isn't. Orpha kisses her mother-in-law goodbye. She goes back toward what's familiar. Ruth, however, clings to Naomi, and she says, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." That's out of Ruth 1:16. That is such a powerful, bold statement of faith, don't you think? Her faithfulness shows us what perseverance looks like when love takes the lead, when God's love takes the lead, when she chooses to stay when it's easier to leave. She walks forward where there's no guarantees. She trusted that Naomi's God would make a way even when she couldn't see it. You know, something that Darlene says here, faithfulness isn't forged in comfort, it's formed by conviction. And it's so true. It doesn't wait for circumstances to change or for life to get easy. Again, it just keeps going. It chooses to love, to serve, and to trust in the middle of the unknown. And I so agree. And it's interesting, Ruth's devotion didn't end here. It went forward. It was carried forward into God's redemptive plan, guys. Think about this. Through Ruth, God puts Ruth and Boaz together. They have a child, Obed, who's the grandfather of David. And through that line, Christ himself comes. What began as a quiet act of love became a legacy that changed history. I thought about that. I'm like, that's amazing. And also she mentions about the parable of the sower. She, there's the seed that springs up quickly full of life, emotion and even promise, but when the sun of hardship comes, it reveals the depth of a plant's roots. Orpha didn't necessarily do anything wrong here. Her commitment wasn't rooted in conviction. Ruth, however, is a picture of the good soil. Her faith took root in conviction, not convenience. She clings to Naomi and to God when there's nothing left to gain, only trust to give. And that's a powerful thing. Faithfulness, like Ruth's, it's an inside job, as Darlene says, where the love for God shapes the way that we live, and it truly is. I thought about what faithfulness is. I've been thinking about that in my life. I really have. I love how Darlene says that faithfulness deepens as we walk closely with God, listening to his word, trusting his timing, and relying on his strength. And when we get tested, that faithfulness does grow. When life is uncertain, we learn to depend on God, the certainty of God, in his unchanging character, his unfailing promises. And yes, obedience comes with a cost. But we discover that strength doesn't come from ourselves, it comes from Almighty God. I think of 2 Corinthians 12, verse 10, about, "For when I am weak, then I'm made strong." It's through our weakness that God makes us strong. Wouldn't you agree? Darlene says that faithfulness looks a lot like choosing a promise when frustration rises, keeping a promise even when it costs something, making space for prayer when the schedule feels too full, speaking gently when criticism would come easier, staying the course when your heart is tired but your trust remains. And I that last one right now. Yesterday, when I found out about my mother, when I found out about her, guys, I was in tears. I'm still really hurting right now. I know she's not gone yet, but I just have this in my mind right now. She's going to go. And I know that one thing I want to tell you about my mother, Patricia, she's saved and she loves the Lord very much. This is a woman who I think is the epitome of Proverbs 31 woman here. This is a woman who can turn a little bit of money into a whole week's to a month's worth of groceries. She knew of ways to be able to save money, to be able to get what was needed. I remember she would take us out. We would go to a supermarket. She'd go to a supermarket and she'd buy lunch meat ends and cheese ends. She'd slice it up herself and she'd make sandwiches. We'd go to a park. We'd go to a park and just eat outside. It would be our little picnic. Uh, she would also take us, let's say, to McDonald's and just get hamburgers or cheeseburgers, a whole bunch of them. And she'd tell me, "Hey, Wendy, go get the napkins." My mom was industrious like that because we'd use those napkins, we'd accumulate a whole bunch of them, and when we'd run out of toilet paper, that would be our toilet paper. That was my mom. That's my mom. And she just had this awesome thing, just awesome trust in God. But she was industrious. She knew how to make money stretch. She knew how to make sure that we, had what we needed. I remember when I got older, I was still living at home. I left at 21 and made sure to not come back for a lot of obvious reasons. But my mother, I want to tell you right now, my mother made it possible. God used my mother. I'm going to say this right now. Pardon me here. I'm going to heat up my dinner. But God used my mother. I kid you not. God used my mother to make sure that I could go to college. And let me explain. This is how ingenious my mother is. When I was filling out all the financial aid forms, my father said, "Don't you dare ask for any of my information. I'm not giving it. I'm not helping you out." Okay? I called the financial aid office. I called the people there. I said, "Listen, this is my situation. My father is refusing to give me any of his information. I'm 21. Is there some way that I can only give you my information?" And they're like, "Well, this is what you need to do." The girl told me, "If you have your own tax returns and if you can get a notarized letter stating that you have been paying room and board, then you can submit that in and you will qualify for what is known as financial emancipation." It was a financial type of emancipation. I'm sure many of you probably understand what I'm trying to say. So I did it, and I qualified for the maximum in grants in grants, federal and state. I even got a scholarship, and I also took out loans. I did everything myself. But my mother got me to a notary, a friend, an old friend that was living in our development that was a notary public. And we got that letter together and she notarized it and we sent it out and boom. I qualified for the maximum in state and federal grants. I kid you not. It was because God used my mom in that capacity to help me go to college. And I so thank God for that. I so thank God for that. I thank God for the little ways where my mom helped me throughout my life, made sure I had what I needed when I needed it. Because I think she knew I needed to get out. She wanted me to be the best me for God I could be, not what my dad wanted me to be, but what God wanted me to be. And I think if it wasn't for God using her in that moment, I would never have gone to Philadelphia College of Bible. But something else interesting that I was just realizing, a Proverbs 31 woman rests in God's presence. I thought this was interesting. Uh, this was a 2021 State of the Bible report by the American Bible Society. Only 11% of American Christians read the Bible each day. That's kind of frightening. Some a woman, a real faithful woman of God, she doesn't read God's word because she has to. She reads it because she wants to. She reads it because she has a desire to know God more, to rest in His presence, to treasure God. And I ask, what about you in that area? I want to challenge you with these questions. Okay, take a mental snapshot of your week. Where did your time go? What captured your attention and what occupied your thoughts? I was thinking about that. My whole thing is taking care, as I said, taking care of my little brother. I've been really concerned about making sure he's got a coat, and my mom. She's in an assisted living facility, as I said, in hospice care. She's going downhill fast. I'm thinking of all these things. I'm thinking of all these things. I'm thinking of what I was reading this more out of this morning's scripture about trusting God's plans. I'll be honest, I find it hard. I also, how many of us are also, you get glued to your phone and your tablet. I was glued to it thinking about my mom. I don't want to be hooked or on or glued to social media, but I want to be hooked on and glued to God. And I was reading this, and I think the things that I treasure the most, aside from God first and foremost, it's my family. I want everything, I want to do everything right in the Lord by them. I want to treasure the Lord first in my life, first and foremost. I want to prioritize things the right way without becoming a Pharisee about it. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And I want to ask this last question before I close. What do you think it would look like to realign your time, your focus, and your priorities so that they reflect on the things that God is calling you to value? And I'm going to say right now, I think for me, it would look chaotic, frazzled, and overwhelmed because of what I'm going through right now. I'm trying to balance not only being Wendy, a wife, but also a big sister to my little brother. I'm trying to balance all these things. And as I said, I've just learned my mom's dying. And I'm going to the Lord in frustration and advanced grief on all of this, guys. I think what it would look like for me right now is just to take all of it and say, Lord, please take care of this, while also asking God to please keep me from pulling my hair out and wanting to scream. I'm being honest here. Uh, I'm finding that what it means to be faithful is to be faithful to God, not to man. I want to prioritize God, not what man says God should say. You see what I'm saying? I don't know how else to put it. I really would greatly appreciate your prayers right now. I think that the person who is faithful is somebody who chooses to trust God and trust and know that God is taking care of them, that God is wrapping their arms around them, even in their grief, even in their anguish, even in their frustration. And I pray I've been asking God to do that for me. I'm thinking about a dear friend of mine who lost both of his parents in less than 6 months' time. I think of what he's going through. And I think that's, to me, would hopefully sum everything I'm saying up in a nutshell. Thanks for listening to me, guys. Seriously. As I said before in the beginning, I'm going to post the link for the fund for the GoFundMe, and I'm also going to send you post my Cash App, my PayPal, and my Venmo. As I said, we need we need enough for a hotel stay, gas, and food, whatever meals we eat. So if you could help us out with that, that would be great. I'd like to go see her next week if possible. So please, please help. But also, please pray for me that I can keep my trust in God in the midst of this craziness. I thought I'd just share things like that, okay? You guys have a good night, okay? And if you've got any questions, you know you can message me. Thanks.